my grandfather was accused unjustly, put in jail, tortured and killed, so that member of the Communist Party could be in that building. I discovered that she had forged documents. My grandfather helped to hide in our properties 22 families, 22 Slovenian families. My mother, after Slovenia became independent, she was still afraid of going to Slovenia. I had to force her of Wolfovi one that my grandfather built almost 100 years ago. It is a beautiful building, is probably the largest building in the center of Ljubljana.
Before we speak about injustice and legal battles, can you tell us who the Mayer family was, what Wolfovi one represented in pre-war Ljubljana, and why this building means so much to your family personally?
Well, the Mayer family, the family of my mother, was a Slovenian family, originally from Germany, then moved down to Austria and then further down to Slovenia in Ljubljana. My grandfather was a well-known businessman, very respected person in Ljubljana, and my mother was born in Bled, where they had 3 villas there, and she lived most of the times in Ljubljana, in the building of Wolfovi one that my grandfather built almost 100 years ago. It is a beautiful building, is probably the largest building in the center of Ljubljana, and has a lot of significance to me because it was built by him. My mother essentially lived there until when, after the war, he was unjustly accused of helping the Germans and so betraying Slovenia. So he was jailed, tortured, and at the end killed, while my mother was in prison for several months along with the rest of the family, and then left to essentially die with no shoes, nothing, winter time, to cross the Alps to go to Italy, and they told her, go and die on the mountains. She managed to cross the mountains, the Alps, and she got rescued by an American soldier, in fact. And then she went to Rome and she met my father, and here I am. It is a very touching history, what my mother and my mother's family went through. Essentially, I'm half Slovenian, that's a fact. My mother was Slovenian, so we are attached to Slovenia. But there is this horrible background. Notwithstanding, we contributed, the family contributed so much to Slovenia, and I am trying to contribute today. There was this tragic period where we were considered enemies of Slovenia. When Slovenia became part of the European community and became independent from Yugoslavia, we decided to, in fact, the sister of my mother, my aunt, decided to promote a rehabilitation of her father, my grandfather. And so she collected a lot of documents, and there were the names also of many people that, in fact, my grandfather helped to hide in our properties against the Germans when they invaded militarily Slovenia during the war. And so she, basically my grandfather saved 22 families, 22 Slovenian families. And notwithstanding that, after the war, when Communist Party took over, an ex-employee of my grandfather that was fired from his bank, my grandfather had a bank, and he caught this person that was a director of the bank stealing money from the bank. So he fired him. And after the war, this very person accused my grandfather of a crime that was to collaborate with the Germans against Slovenia. So that's how sad is this story. Here is a man that did so much for Slovenia, helped the Slovenian economy, helped Ljubljana, helped 22 families against the brutality of the Germans. And then he gets accused exactly of what he didn't commit. And he was jailed, tortured, and finally killed. So for me, this building that he constructed represents a lot, because it is in his memory, a memory of a wonderful man that unfortunately I was not able to meet, but that I know quite a lot of, and I admire him. And also the suffering of my mother, the suffering of my entire family. Personally, I have a lot of attachment to Slovenia. Maybe it's because I'm in reality half Slovenian, though I'm an Italian citizen. I find Slovenia a beautiful country, great people, great culture. I think that Ljubljana is a beautiful city, and I am very happy that Slovenia has evolved, is now part of the European community, and that it is a developed country. I remember when Slovenia became independent, and I went there. It was not my first trip, but also during the war I was providing medicines and help. But when I arrived right after independence, Slovenia was really a sad country. Ljubljana was a grey town, sad, very sad to see. And now today, instead, it's such a developed country. It is a beautiful city, it's a beautiful country, all over you go. So all that ruin from the communist regime is over now. It's like never existed, and that is a beautiful thing. I think that Slovenian people, they should be honored for that. They fought, they became independent, they rebuilt their country.
Your grandfather, Emerika Mayerja, became a victim of the communist system after the Second World War. What happened to him, and how did that trauma shape your family across generations?
You know, since I was a kid, my mother told me about my grandfather, so it definitely shaped in part, my life, my feelings, and is something that has shaped the future of my mother's family in a very dramatic way. I mean, my aunt went to live to Brazil, and she became a teacher of the German language and Slovenian language. And my mother, she went to Rome and she started modeling for one of the important Italian designer, Pucci, at the time. And then she met my father, and so when they got married, etc. The brother of my mother instead emigrated to Ghana in Africa and made his life there as a expert of marine nature. So it was devastating because obviously the family broke apart. They were all born in Slovenia, but this tragic event by the communist regime has changed completely the life of this beautiful family.
When Slovenia became independent and the property was finally returned to your family, did you believe this was the beginning of justice and reconciliation?
When my aunt, along with my mother, started the proceeding to rehabilitate my grandfather from crimes that he never committed, and the court, looking at the evidences, rehabilitated him, that was such a victory. The interesting thing is that my aunt and my mother, they didn't do it with the intention of recovering the properties. It was the attorney back then that said, you know, now that your father has been deemed innocent, all the properties that were taken away because he was found guilty, the properties have to come back to you, the heirs. So that was an unexpected process that it came just as a consequence. And so we pursued getting the properties back, and when we got several properties back, we believed that the justice system in Slovenia truly worked. But then, obviously, over time we got disappointed.
You have said that the greatest shock was not only losing property, but being betrayed by someone you trusted as your lawyer. Can you describe the moment you realized something was terribly wrong?
When we recovered the properties, the heirs, my cousins, they wanted to sell. They were scattered around the world. They were the sons of the sister of my mother, the brother of my mother. So they had no attachment to Slovenia. They remembered the tragic events, and so they just decided to sell their shares of the properties. And I wanted to maintain this building, and so I formed a Slovenian company with a lawyer, a Slovenian lawyer, Tjaša Presents, and then I acquired the shares of the heirs. And so at the end, the only owners was my mother and myself. My mother directly under her name, and me through a Slovenian company called Euro Capital Partners Estate. And Prozac did form the company. I was named the director of the company, so she was the one representing me in this whole process. What has happened over the years is that given that Prozac was living in an apartment in the building that Wolfovi one that we recovered, and she was paying rent, a very nominal rent, very small. She asked me if I was interested in selling that apartment, and I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I want to keep the building whole. It's a building that represents a lot for me, and so the building has to stay as a whole. Nothing is for sale. She asked me a couple of times if I was willing to sell and she was going to pay something, etc. And I said, I'm not interested. I've been telling you, nothing is for sale in this building. You can keep on paying this nominal rent for several years. You are representing us, you are our lawyer, so as a favor to you, we can do that. But then, notwithstanding, I kept in touch with her, and I went to visit her at least a couple of times in person in Ljubljana at her office, and I was probably every month or other month on a phone call with her, just checking if everything was okay. I discovered that she had forged documents, company documents at the registry, and she actually canceled my name as the sole director of my company, and named, without my mother knowing, named my mother with actually a name that was not even the full name, the real name of my mother. Essentially, she named a anagraphically non-existing person. And then what she did, by combining my mother as a director of the company that owned part of the building with my mother owning the rest of the building, because the building was undivided. So she created a one unit by having my mother on as a co-owner of the building and my company as the other co-owner, and now there is one person representing both sides. And that is when she made sign documents to my mother in Slovenian language that my mother doesn't speak, and there were legal documents, and so she had no idea. And my mother, she was very old and also very sick. And so she took advantage of my mother, saying, these are documents that we need to recover some of the land that we haven't been able to recover, some of the properties, including valuable furniture, paintings. And so my mother signed these papers believing that she was actually trying to do something good for her in recovering such properties, such family properties. I had no doubts that she was also my attorney, because she never told me that she actually forged these documents and that she canceled me as the sole director of my company. In essence, what she did, she had my mother sign documents in which she would sell. She sold the apartment. She didn't pay for the apartment because she took money from my mother that were on the account. Made appear that she paid officially, but in reality she used my mother money that she sent to Prozanc's account in Switzerland. And a store for her son, Gregor Prozac, for no payment. There is no payment to the company, my company, to my mother. So she literally stole these two properties without my mother knowing what she was doing, me without knowing what my attorney was doing is an incredibly sad story, because that's exactly what the Communist Party did years before. They stole our properties. They took away our properties. We found out actually that representative of the Communist Party liked that building and wanted to live in that building. And that's why my grandfather was accused unjustly, put in jail, tortured and killed, so that member of the Communist Party could be in that building. And that's exactly what Pravice has done. Has repeated in a different form what had happened many years before. And she's a lawyer. She was representing me. She was my attorney. Her function was to protect me, to do my interest. And then instead what she did, she stole from me. She defrauded me and my mother.
At first, this may have seemed like an isolated legal dispute. When did you begin to feel that your case reflected something much bigger inside the Slovenian legal and political system?
When I learned of this crime, this horrible crime, that was also, again, it was not a crime by a third party. It was a crime by my lawyer, who represented me, who formed my own company, who knew I was the sole director. It was not just some other parties committing a crime. I immediately hired another lawyer and denounced the fact that my attorney defrauded me. More, I think, defrauded and stolen. The legal system has this absurd rule in Slovenia that after 3 years that a crime is committed, the person cannot be held accountable criminally, because the time was past, so was barred. My proceeding of criminally charged Pravice. And that is absolutely insane, because protects criminals. If you don't know that a crime has been committed, how can the 3 years be the time by which a crime can be barred? Should be from the moment that you learn of the crime. It's like saying somebody can steal your property, defraud you, but you don't know anything, and then suddenly there is no criminal charge against that person, and then you have to fight civilly to regain your property. And these lawsuits, they can last years, and that person who committed a crime is basically not charged criminally, would not go to jail. So it's just a rigged system, and is very much in favor of the old political class, the communists, that still unfortunately are predominantly controlling the legal system in Slovenia.
How did this long legal struggle affect your mother, Doris Mayer, personally, especially after surviving exile, dispossession, and then facing another injustice later in life?
I have to say that one thing that I witnessed is that my mother, after Slovenia became independent, she was still afraid of going to Slovenia. I had to force her. I had to drive her to Slovenia. She was literally, emotionally still traumatized. And she said, this was my country, but made me suffer so much. Took everything away from me. My father, my family was destroyed. Everything that we had was gone. I was in jail, and she recounted me what she went through in jail. She was also violated and tortured. I mean, it was dramatic. So she was emotionally very frail. She told that she found in Pravice a person that really cared about her and really wanted to protect her. And instead, Pravice was another criminal. And my mother was shocked, really, really hurt, when she found out that Pravice had taken advantage of her and stolen our properties. She couldn't believe it. I saw her crying. She suffered a lot. She didn't want to go back to Slovenia ever again. And then eventually, she was already very sick. She got even sicker. And then she passed away 3 years ago.
Many people would eventually give up after years of court cases and disappointments. What gives you the determination to continue this fight?
I don't give up, and I will never give up. I am looking for justice. In memory of my family, my grandfather, my mother, my aunt, my uncle, I want to bring justice, and I want this criminal Presence and her son, Gregor Presence, to be incriminated. I want these properties back, and I will never give up, ever. I've been advised by several people, powerful people, to leave this battle because Presence is an influential person in Slovenia, because she used to be the lover of the ex-president of Slovenia, and so she had influence still with high-level political individuals and so on. And I was advised to look for my life, to stay away from all of this. It is not by chance that several times I came with bodyguards in Slovenia, and I had to check my car before turning the car on because I was afraid that they were actually attempting to my life. I think that the risk is still there, but that now with the new government that was just put in place this week, if I am correct, with the new Prime Minister, Janez Janša, that is a very reputable person, I think and I hope that things will start changing, and that corruption and that the legal system in Slovenia will be reformed, and that I will finally get justice.
You launched the project House of Justice. What does this project represent for you beyond your own family story?
House of Justice represent exactly what it says. Is I want that building that suffered twice criminal acts to become the symbol of justice in Slovenia. And that's why I called it House of Justice, because it's not only about justice towards my family, but towards every citizen that has been abused. I am the promoter through that building, through House of Justice, of a reform of the justice system and the political corruption. Corruption is like another tax. Slovenians already pay a tax, but when there is corruption involved, that means an extra tax. and that slows down the development of the country, hurts the credibility of the country. And many foreigners, they don't want to invest in Slovenia because of that, because of the lack of protection, because of the corruption that is still there and is from the old communist regime, from the older generation that is still influence system, the life of Slovenia.
You often speak about corruption, networks of influence, and the unfinished transition from communism. In your opinion, what must change for people to trust the rule of law again?
What is necessary is exactly what happened now. A new government, a government that wants to reform the justice system and that wants to fight corruption. Mr. Janša has been imprisoned before because he was fighting the system. And I praise Mr. Janša to have been so determined to stay in politics and to win again, and guiding now a government that is exactly against corruption and against a inefficient and corrupted legal system. So he said very clearly that among his top goals under his administration is to fight corruption and the legal system inefficiency.
If one day justice is achieved, what would you want Wolfov I to symbolize for future generations, both for your family and for Slovenia?
Well, for my family, would be a symbol of rebirth, and I think would be the same for Slovenia. Slovenia is a country, I traveled a lot in the world, and I think that Slovenia is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Is culturally a wonderful place with wonderful people. I have met really extraordinary people, but it's the young generation. And that is the generation that has to take control of Slovenia in the future. It is a country with 2.6 million people in a beautiful, beautiful environment. I mean, that is preserved. Slovenians love nature. They respect their country. So I am very impressed with Slovenia, and I think that to reform the justice system and to have a structural change against corruption that is still permanent in the country would be a rebirth for the country, would be actually what can propel this country to higher heights.